Opposition MPs turned to the Ethics Committee today to look deeper into the snc-lavalin affair. And did a disagreement on a Supreme Court pick start the breakdown between Prime Minister Trudeau and Jody wilson-raybould? Joining us with the latest on these developments and more is the Globe and Mail's Laura Stone. Laura, Andrew Scheer was on this show just last week saying that the opposition was going to use every tool at their disposal to keep this story alive. Is the Ethics Committee the latest tool in their toolbox?
Absolutely, Ben. This is the latest Conservative push to keep snc-lavalin in the headlines. We were talking, maybe the story was starting to die down a little bit. This week, it seems like the fire is lit once again. The Ethics Committee has a Conservative chair. So that's why this motion to call Jody wilson-raybould and Jane Philpott to come and testify to tell more about their stories is active. However, they need two Liberals to actually side with the opposition motion on this. And so I don't expect that it will go ahead. But it will be interesting. There is one Liberal on the committee, Nate Erskine-Smith, who actually voted to hold a public inquiry into this matter. So he might turn and end up supporting this.
Meanwhile, the narrative as to when the breakdown between Jody wilson-raybould and the Prime Minister, when did it start? It's getting rewritten. Today, we're hearing that it has something to do with the Supreme Court pick.
Yeah, there's kind of two streams to this news story. We're hearing that Trudeau was against this recommended judge, that Jody wilson-raybould wanted the Chief Justice of Manitoba to be the next Supreme Court pick. Trudeau was worried about his interpretation of some charter rights. That's the story that was being put out there. But then the other stream is, you have to question why it's being put out there. Who's putting it out there and who benefits? Well, this story arguably makes the Prime Minister look good. He looks like he's standing up for charter rights like abortion and LGBTQ rights. And then this kind of backfired late yesterday when we had the justice himself say, "No one approached me for comment. I actually had to remove myself from the running because my wife was ill and I'm being used here and it's inappropriate."
And the implication is that this might possibly be coming from the PMO.
Well, there's some sort of political leak going on, and I don't know who it's from, but why was this leaked to two journalists and who benefits from it? So that's the question.
It's a question. And a lot of people on at least on the Twitter feeds that I follow say there's a select group of people who would be privy to this sort of information.
Yeah, and it keeps the story going, right?
Yeah.
This was dying down somewhat last week. Now, as Jody wilson-raybould did comment on this yesterday, she said this is supposed to be confidential. Yeah. Who is leaking this? So it adds more fuel to the fire.
But as we were saying, the Tories are doing their best to keep this on the front pages, but there are a lot of people helping them who should want this to go to bed. Meanwhile, let's talk about sort of the actual work of government. And Chrystia Freeland in Washington talking to her U.S. counterpart about NAFTA and also those tariffs.
Yeah, the Liberals are going back to, their common enemy, someone they want to talk about, Donald Trump, not themselves. So we had Chrystia Freeland in the U.S. yesterday saying, Canadians might not want to ratify the new NAFTA deal, the USMCA, while these tariffs are still in place. This is politically beneficial for the Liberals, right? They took on Donald Trump, they got this deal, and now Freeland's saying you have to lift these tariffs in order for the deal to go ahead. And this could actually, Ben, push it past the election. Yeah. So this might be something that the Liberals actually want to keep alive because, people in Canada don't really like Donald Trump.
And they keep saying that these tariffs were imposed on national security grounds, and nobody can explain what exactly that means.
Yeah, there seems to be no basis for this, but that's always been the argument here. This has been an issue since the deal was signed. So Freeland's just reminding everyone that they're still in place.
Sanctions were lifted on North Korea last week, but tariffs still in place in Canada. That makes perfect sense to me. Laura Stone, thank you so much.
Thanks, Ben.